Well, hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's lesson, we're going to be painting these gorgeous daffodils. And as you can see, we've already got our focal point there. Out of all of them, there's that one orange one. I've got out my canvas here. I'm working on using this Kraftgeek studio easel, which works well as a tabletop easel and a stand-up easel. So there's my little shout out to Kraftgeek. I'm going to be mainly using this catalyst wedge tool to apply all my paint. I have one other one, but I like this one better, so I'll mainly be using this and acrylic paint, and we're going to create a really great looking abstract daffodil painting because daffodils are extremely precise flower and hard to paint, and I want to loosen up and teach you how you can loosen up and really have fun with a flower like this. And we're going to have fun with the colors and the background and everything. So let's start painting. I just want to go over the colors I've put out, and I might put out other ones as I go, but I've got out some Viridian, some Indian yellow, and this is a grayish blue. This is a turquoise. And I've got out the titanium white, quinacridone red, cobalt blue, burnt sienna, some transparent yellow, or this is yellow oxide, not transparent, it's just yellow oxide, cad yellow medium, and cad yellow light. I am going to just kind of block in this shape. So remember, we're trying to keep it loose here and abstract. So I'm just going to put in this sort of cross shape that I see here. And this is really fun because you honestly, you don't have a huge amount of control here. I might even spritz my canvas actually with some water just to lightly kind of give that surface a little moisture. Yeah, that's a lot better. And with daffodils, I found I would never really teach how to paint daffodils anymore because it just got everyone really frustrated. So in this video, I don't really know if I'm going to be able to do the greatest job of these because they are really complicated flower and, you know, all the different little angles. But if I can keep it really loose, then I can hopefully, you know, help you with your painting to keep it really loose as well. So I think I'm gonna put the paint on this side, and then I want to make this little shape of that one daffodil just a little. You just want to pick a few that stand out to you, and then kind of, I feel like those are the ones that are gonna really, you'll add some detail. Like, of course, I really like that one, so maybe I'll try to get some of those shapes more obvious around that one is a focal point. Sorry, it's hard to talk and paint. My brain sort of jumps all over like a skipping record, but you can see how much fun it is when you can apply the paint like this quickly. You need to make some space for the drama that goes on with all this. You got all this paint and this big brush, but look at how quickly you can cover your canvas. So that's one of the benefits. So I'm just going to wipe my little wedge tool off here. And then I'm going to start with what comes next. So the question is, are we going to keep the vase? Maybe we could have like we'll kind of loosely draw in the vase and then sort of decide later what we're going to do. And because it's an abstract painting, I don't want you to get hung up on the drawing of the vase. I've taught enough real in-person classes to know that the vase can become the entire day. So there we go. There's a vase and a water line. That's good enough for now. And then you can decide what kind of background color you want. I usually start with the background color. You'll notice this time I'm doing it a little different, and that's just because I've got yellow is one of the kind of few colors I wouldn't recommend painting over a background with. So you might want to start off with your yellow, because if you paint that, like say over a dark background, you want these to really show up vibrant, and I need these darker layers to be able to show some of these lights that are the highlights on there. So I decided to do it a little differently and start off with that. Now the question is, what colors in the background? And that's always a tough question. I think something, you can layer some, neutrals. So you could take a little bit of that cobalt and the burnt sienna and just sort of get a gray tone. And so I'm just, make sure you can see this, I'm just mixing up that, and I've added a little bit of water to that, like I would with my paintbrush. And we'll try it and see what happens here. So Indian yellow. So let's see if I can, well, I have a link to all my supplies in the description, but here's the golden transparent iron oxide. So I'm going to go ahead and look at some of these stems and just want to get some of them in there, because then I can apply those bold strokes on there after. So just put a few of these stems and little hints of green coming through here. It'll just make everything, stand out later. Just use the edge of your brush and you can bring down those little stems. And then as they hit the bottom there, you can add a little bit of, I'm going to add a little cad yellow light to them, because you can see if we're keeping these, you just want to add a little bit of a lighter tone to those near the bottom there. And again, we're sticking with the abstract look there, so I'll add a little white, and I had a bit of the blue, little bit of that turquoise in there. And I'll add a bit of that into that green mix and just kind of, I'm looking at my top of my vase there. And I'm learning as I go. You know, I've been very traditional most of my life with how I paint, and so this is all kind of new territory for me as well. But you got to start somewhere, and I figure, well, if we all start this, by the end of the year, we'll be semi-experts at this painting loose sort of thing, or something. At least we're on the path. And if I have a brush and I can let myself off the hook, I definitely will. So I'm going to leave that for now because I really like what's going on there. Maybe okay, I'm going to leave that. So we'll come back to that later, but at least now we have some darker greens like you see in that middle area there. And I'm going to wipe off this tool and keep going. Just zoom out a little so you can see the mixing a bit more. Okay. Okay, so I'm cleaning off my little tool here, which is kind of like a painting in itself, you know, you got the all the little abstract colors in there. Okay, so now for the challenge here, I'm going to just kind of wipe my little palette off a bit. Actually, come to think of it, I'm going to use this looks funny because it's got some paint on it, but I'm going to use a different, this is all dry. I'm going to use a different palette because I don't want to get too much of that color. So I've got some of this CAD yellow medium, and I'm going to I've added a little white to it, and I'll sort of go at starting on some of the detail of these flowers. So let's see, put in a few marks. And that one I'm going to add a little burnt sienna to the mix so that it's a little bit darker because it's kind of in behind the other one. So just sort of mix up little burnt sienna in there with the cadmium yellow. And I'm leaving some of the shadow in there. And I mix a little quinacridone red in with my cad yellow. Just to make a little bit of that, kind of that more orangey color for the center of that one. And I'll put in a bit of that orange in some of the other centers just so that they stand out more. And you need a paper towel to wipe your tool off, but I think I'm gonna go out and get some of those, like some of those towels that they have at Home Depot, you know, for wiping bigger things off, so I'm not always using up all these paper towels. So you can use, I've put out some clean yellow, and I'm going to go and really put in some of these shapes. I'm not really looking to narrow it down yet on the flowers. I just want to quickly look and see where I need to capture some of these lighter highlights and then let it go, sort of. And I've always only painted these hyper real, you know, kind of more on the impressionist, but really super realistic. So this is more of a challenge for me to loosen up than anything. So we got but you can see how quickly you get the feeling of daffodils. We're not going so much for the detail, but more like an expression. All right, I'm really liking the way those are looking. Some of you are probably saying, that is the craziest daffodil painting I've ever seen, but we're not done yet because I've only been using this tool. I'm going to add a few highlights just with this cad yellow light. And I'm using really as kind of inexpensive paints. I'm not using, for this, I'm not using the golden. I only had the golden for this color, the transparent yellow oxide, because they just don't make that color in the cheap tubes. So you kind of have to sometimes use a little golden. And I've got now some white and that cad yellow light, and I'm mixing up a highlight for my daffodils. My daffodil expression, I'll call it. So, and if this is your first time trying anything like this out, I have tulips and sunflowers, and so I would start with one of those other lessons before I jumped into the daffodils. So I'm going to pop a little highlight here and there where I see some really bright highlights. Here and there. And also you're getting such a nice tactile feeling when you're putting this paint on with these. You get this thick, thick paint, and I really enjoy that. I feel like as artists, you're connecting at a whole different level with your painting when you're using a tool like this. So you look at your reference, you get the main setup, but now as you can see, I'm not doing exactly what's there. I'm more or less using it as an inspiration at this point, because I don't have everything going on that's in there, or I wouldn't be able to, you know, get these loose flowers. And I love the kind of pastel yellow color that's, you know, coming on now. Okay, so you don't want to add highlights to the entire thing. So you want to take a little break and look at it, you know, stand back after you get some stuff on there. And then I want to go back and kind of work on the centers a bit more. So just wiping off my tool, and I think I'll switch to my palette knife for this. I've mixed up, I do have a little bit of this orange, because I mixed the quinacridone red with the cad yellow to make that orange. So just mix up a little bit more. And I add some cad yellow light to it. So there you go. You got something there that'll show up against the yellow. And you could do, this one's kind of looking straight out. So I'm just gonna kind of put in those little ruffles. And this one here. Remember, the goal is to create a loose painting, so it's definitely, this is the loosest daffodil painting I've ever painted. And there's something really freeing about it, because you just can't really correct it. You know, you have to just kind of go with what you got when you put these marks down. And okay, then I'm going to just maybe make this one stand out a bit more. Like that. And then I'm going to start maybe putting in some of that turquoise in the background, because I don't want it to be really loose. And so I'm just going to mix up some, I've got some of that light turquoise pile, and then I've got the actual turquoise. So I just like to mix up a few values, different values of it. And we'll put a few strokes of the background in and see what we got now. So I'm going to go back to my spatula tool here. And you can put in some different, different values of the same color and kind of work your way around. And I'm just mixing it. Around the corners, you sometimes need the brush just to get the edges because the canvas kind of naturally caves in a little bit on the corners. So you just sort of will touch it up with the brush. And you can make all kinds of marks just to really, loosen it up still. Just kind of mess it up a little, All right, so now when you get to that point where you've got enough of that color going on the background, then you can start getting into it a little bit more, into a little more detail with your palette knife around some of the areas that you might kind of overdo it a bit with the spatula tool. I'm just going to grab some paper towels and I'll be right back. Okay. Now you have two options. You could let your, your flowers dry a bit before you start on adding the background, so that way you don't really drag the yellow into the, into the mix. But because I'm just doing this as a demo really quick, I didn't let it dry, so you'll see some bits of yellow that kind of mixed in up here. Because it's an abstract, you just want to have fun with the shapes and the design and not get too worried about getting it exactly right. That'll come over time. I'm just going to put a little bit of that vase back in there. Kind of outline, make some marks that make it look a little more loose. So and I really have enjoyed this, learning how to do this and posting these videos. I've had a lot of really good feedback, and so if you like my videos, I have a Patreon membership you can join, and that really helps a lot. You can support the channel, and I'm going to be working really hard all year to make these lessons for you. And you can quit anytime. You can sign up and quit anytime. I hope you give this a try. I really enjoy teaching you and enjoy these kind of wild paintings that I'm coming out with here with the spatula tool. So yeah, I hope you give it a try, and I look forward to teaching you. The full-length edition of this video will be on my Patreon, where you get the extended version, sort of, but this is, I hope, a good example of what I teach on my YouTube and on my Patreon channel. So to get the extended version, just head to Patreon and you can sign up there. All right, so this is where we left off, and now I want to show you kind of how I would go about finishing kind of the final touches that I didn't do on the video that I had on YouTube. This is the extended version. So I'm going to put out a little more paint, a little more of that cadmium light, and some more white, and I'm using this U-Tricked Artist. There's a big tub of this because you use a lot of white paint when you do these flowers. So I'm going to add a little more of that. To the mix here. Put out some more for the blue. Okay, so I'm going to just mix some of that up there. Some real highlights on this. So I've got out the CAD light, and I've got my titanium white, and I'm just mixing up a little bit lighter yellow for the highlights. And I don't even need to add any gel gloss medium for this because this paint is so thick. Just kind of look at where the real highlights are. And I'm going to also add a little bit of Viridian, and I want to go through and just add a few more highlights to the vase. So just mix up a little bit. And also it just adds a lot of texture too. And I'm going to just add a little few lighter highlights in there of the green, and then I might even put a few of those little stems here and there up in the painting, like this one here. You can kind of see the back of it more, so I'm going to put that in there. Like that. I like to throw a little bit of that yellow here and there. And I'll put a highlight while I'm at it on the vase. So the other thing you can do is take a little white and some of that orange mix and get a lighter mixture of the color in the center, and you could add a little highlight to some of those. Just to throw in a little bit of another color into the mix as well. Check out the other lessons. I've got sunflowers and tulips. I do really like the way the colors turned out, and I think on a wall just sitting there like from far away, that would have like a really nice happy feeling in just as a decorative piece. So from that perspective, I'm really happy with it. So I hope you give it a try, and I look forward to teaching you in the next lesson.